The red carpet may be laid out in Washington, D.C., but for Prince Harry, the welcome has effectively been burned to ashes. It's 9:00 a.m. on April 29th, 2026, and what we're seeing unfold is arguably the harshest constitutional reckoning in the history of the House of Windsor. As King Charles III arrives for this landmark state visit, the palace's silence speaks volumes. The Sussex era is closed, and the era of James Alexander is now underway. With sirens echoing across Manhattan and security tightening after the recent unrest in the capital, the king has drawn a firm and unmistakable line, one that Harry and Meghan cannot cross. Senior diplomatic figures at the British Embassy confirmed that at precisely 10:15 a.m. yesterday, the king rejected a third straight request from his younger son for a private meeting. This wasn't about scheduling, it was a complete shutdown. One high-ranking official described the internal mood as one of total finality, recalling the king's own words. His focus lies with the stability of the nation, not managing personal disputes. Insiders refer to this as the king's asangua, a cold, unwavering composure that sharply contrasts with what they describe as ongoing professional decline at Montecito. While Harry continues to criticize U.S. leadership and sees his speaking fees drop to around $50,000, the king is projecting what they call true sovereign resolve. In the aftermath of Washington's security crisis, Charles has chosen visibility over retreat, embodying the classic keep calm and carry on approach, reinforcing the idea that monarchy offers stability, while celebrity often brings noise. This moment marks a constitutional tipping point. 3. The palace appears to have accepted that a future cannot be built on controversy. Instead, they are placing their confidence in the 18-year-old Earl of Wessex. If this strategic shift within the monarchy surprises you, be sure to like and subscribe. We're covering every development of this state visit as it unfolds. Comment a duty below if you believe it's time for the crown to move beyond the Sussex saga. Perhaps the clearest sign of this transition isn't just the king's silence, but the rapid rise of James Alexander. While Harry is being sidelined into a backup role on the corporate speaking circuit, James has stepped into the inner circle of the Duchy of Cornwall. Reports suggest the Prince of Wales has personally entrusted him with overseeing a significant portfolio of state documents. A source close to Prince William described the shift, saying William sees James as the dependable spare he had hoped for. Discreet, reliable, and free from scandal. Someone who understands that service is a responsibility, not an entitlement, fueled by frustration. At 10:30 a.m. today, as the king prepares for tea with the president, the contrast is striking. In Montecito, Meghan Markle is reportedly attempting to reframe professional setbacks as a royal restraint, suggesting she is deliberately holding back content out of respect for the crown. However, industry insiders have dismissed this explanation as empty rhetoric, pointing out the contradiction of someone who once criticized the institution now claiming deference as the reason for inaction. The truth appears more straightforward. The Sussex brand has shifted from global dominance to a mid-level cautionary example. The monarchy has stopped engaging because it no longer needs to. By accelerating James Alexander into prominent responsibilities, they've effectively removed Harry's last remaining leverage, the idea that the institution lacked younger working royals. The restructuring is complete. As the king moves confidently through Washington, projecting steadiness after turmoil, the influence of Montecito fades further into the background. The future of the British monarchy is now defined by William, Catherine, and the emerging controversy-free presence of James Alexander. That silent boundary has now become a permanent divide. Stay with us as we break down the next phase of this unfolding isolation in the upcoming segment. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss updates from the White House garden party later today. To fully grasp the magnitude of what's happening, we need to examine the precise timeline of the past 8 days. A period insiders are calling the Great Correction. This is when the British establishment methodically dismantled the Sussex influence piece by piece. It all began on the morning of April 25, 2026, at Hyde Park Corner in London. As dawn broke over the Anzac Day service, the public witnessed a symbolic moment pointing toward a new chapter. James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex, standing side by side with Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. Observers at the scene described the mood as charged with energy. At only 18, James displayed a composure and discipline that many likened to a young Prince Philip. While Harry remained thousands of miles away, reportedly withdrawn in California, James was carrying out the solemn responsibility of honoring the fallen. The impact was immediate, a surge of public support across both the United Kingdom and Australia. In just a few hours, the narrative flipped. People stopped wondering about the return of the Aspirer and instead began embracing the figure who had already stepped forward to take that place. One military official present noted that James didn't merely attend. He quietly took command of the moment with a natural dignity that, in their view, Harry hasn't demonstrated in years. But an even more damaging development followed just 3 days later on April 28 in Washington, D.C. As King Charles arrived for a critical diplomatic visit, the U.S. Secret Service, working in tandem with British security teams, enforced an extraordinary perimeter. According to insiders, a strict directive was issued. Prince Harry was to remain at least 5 miles away from the king at all times. This went beyond standard security. It amounted to a complete diplomatic exclusion. The instructions left no room for ambiguity, no close contact, no unscheduled interactions, and no chance for any Sussex-style public moment. For someone still holding the title of prince, being treated as a potential risk by his father's hosts marks both a professional and personal low point. Then, on May 1, while global attention was still focused on the Washington incident, the king acted again, this time quietly from Windsor Castle. With calculated legal clarity, he signed a formal decree transferring several honorary roles and patronages that had long been in limbo for Harry directly to James Alexander. This was the symbolic and practical passing of the Aspire role. In effect, the palace has restructured the hierarchy, redirecting responsibilities once associated with Harry to support the emergence of the next generation. That brings us to May 3 and what appears to be a last-ditch effort from the Sussex public relations team. With their multi-million-dollar Netflix deal approaching its June deadline, Meghan Markle is reportedly circulating a new narrative through supportive media outlets. She claims that her upcoming projects, including a delayed cooking and lifestyle series, are being intentionally held back out of respect for the king. However, insiders have dismissed this explanation as a sign of mounting pressure. They describe a situation where financial strain is becoming increasingly evident, with the monarchy being used as a convenient explanation for stalled creative output. In their view, it's less about protecting the crown and more about preserving dwindling resources. Looking ahead to the next 24 hours, the real question is no longer whether Harry and Meghan can recover, but how far they might go as their support within Hollywood continues to shrink. There are even rumors of a more controversial tactic involving digital images of their children, an approach that could trigger serious legal consequences and ignite a major backlash. Pressure is building rapidly, and the king's silence continues to carry significant weight. What's unfolding now is a systematic removal of Prince Harry's diplomatic standing, so complete that he's effectively been reduced to an unaffiliated figure on the international stage. And this is what insiders describe as the authority staircase in motion. The first major step came through a formal diplomatic dossier issued by the British Foreign Office. Senior officials reportedly communicated directly with the U.S. State Department, delivering a clear notice of non-representation. The document explicitly states that any statements made by Prince Harry on global matters, particularly his recent remarks on Ukraine and U.S. domestic issues, do not reflect the position of the king or the British government under any circumstances. One senior diplomat explained that the palace has moved beyond simply keeping its distance to actively disassociating itself. Harry's attempts to act as an independent global voice, they said, have become a liability to UK-US relations. By formalizing this separation, the monarchy has effectively silenced his influence in official circles. He is no longer viewed as a royal figure speaking on behalf of a centuries-old institution, but rather as a private individual, one whose opinions hold no more official weight than those of any other public figure in California. This diplomatic silencing quickly triggered the next layer of isolation, a coordinated blackout in Washington. During the ongoing state visit, collaboration between the U.S. Secret Service and British Protection Command has extended beyond security into the social arena. In a move that has reportedly rattled the Montecito Circle, the State Department and British Embassy have ensured Harry's complete absence from all high-level engagements. This goes far beyond simply missing out on a garden party invitation. It's a calculated effort to remove the Duke from the platform entirely. Sources suggest that any organization hosting the king was given a strict condition. If the Sussexes attend, the king does not. By forcing Washington's elite to choose, the palace has effectively sidelined Harry in the very environment where he had hoped to build influence. The final and perhaps most serious stage of this process involves the erosion of his legal standing in the United States. For years, Harry operated within a gray zone of diplomatic association. But as of April 26, that buffer appears to have disappeared. Without the Crown's backing, he is now subject to standard U.S. immigration laws like any other individual. This shift has real implications. Statements from his memoir, Spare, regarding past substance use are no longer just personal anecdotes. They could carry legal consequences tied to visa eligibility. Analysts are now warning of a potential review of his residency status, with growing pressure on the Department of Homeland Security to assess whether his original application was fully accurate. One legal expert described the situation bluntly. Without institutional protection, Harry now stands as a titled individual but legally exposed, facing uncertainty where his status once seemed secure. As the king continues his engagements at the White House, Harry is left confronting a difficult reality. His royal title no longer guarantees access or protection. Instead, it may draw increased scrutiny. The palace, in effect, has repositioned him from a central figure to someone operating at the outer edges of both diplomacy and legality. This raises a pressing question. If doors are closing in both the UK and the US, where does he go from here? Some answers may emerge from a series of struggling business ventures that are reportedly nearing public scrutiny. To understand the broader collapse of the Sussex brand, insiders point to what they call a calculated institutional strategy. Successor elevation. This three-step approach is designed not to confront Harry directly, but to make him increasingly irrelevant by replacing him in the public narrative. The first step is strategic absence. This was evident during the centennial commemorations of Queen Elizabeth II birth. In the past, Harry's absence would have dominated headlines. But in April 2026, the palace shifted tactics. Rather than highlighting his non-attendance, they removed him from the narrative entirely. One court insider explained that the objective was to transform Harry from a controversial figure into a historical afterthought, eliminating his ability to disrupt simply by no longer acknowledging him as central to the story. Step 2 involved filling the void. The monarchy depends on a functioning roster of working royals, and Harry's departure left a noticeable gap among the younger generation. That gap has now been filled by James Alexander, the Earl of Wessex. His rise has been anything but gradual. At the recent state opening of Parliament, James wasn't just present, he occupied the same symbolic and physical space once associated with Harry. Through official portraits and public appearances, the message is being reinforced. James is now a key supporting figure. He is also being integrated into senior royal operations, including those connected to the Duchy of Cornwall and the King's inner circle. The visual and institutional signals are clear. The role of the Espere has shifted from a source of instability to one of reliability. This leads to the third and most impactful step, the contrast effect. This is where perception becomes strategy. According to insiders, this deliberate compare as what some now call a toxic asset. James is being presented as the complete opposite of the Montecito image, where Harry and Meghan are associated with high-profile interviews, media exposure, and ongoing controversy. James is being positioned as quiet, disciplined, and service-focused, echoing the traditional model associated with Prince Philip. As one senior advisor put it, James embodies a duty without the drama. At just 18, he remains free of controversy and notably private. The result of this carefully executed strategy is a dramatic shift in global perception and influence. For institutions tied to the British establishment and luxury houses like Dior or Gucci, James Alexander is increasingly viewed as the dependable choice. He carries the prestige of the monarchy without the unpredictability of late-night statements or ongoing legal disputes. In contrast, Harry's standing has declined sharply. To many observers, he no longer represents royal authority, but rather a figure defined by recurring controversy. Where he was once seen as an asset, he is now often perceived as a reputational risk. His relevance tied more to past grievances than future contributions. James's emergence has also removed what was once Harry's strongest leverage. For years, the Sussexes appeared to operate under the belief that their return would eventually be necessary due to a lack of younger royal figures. By accelerating James's role, the monarchy has demonstrated that it can evolve without relying on any single individual. As this new, low-drama generation gains traction, a difficult question arises for those in California. If James represents the future, will the world gradually stop looking back at the past? Amid the shift, reports suggest the Sussexes are exploring new ways to maintain visibility even as financial pressures mount. Harry's transition from a highly sought-after global figure to a more routine presence on the corporate speaking circuit reflects this change. Recent reports indicate his speaking fee for an Australian event dropped to around $50,000, a stark contrast to the six-figure sums he once commanded. One industry observer described the shift bluntly. The Harry brand has moved from premium status to something more discounted and uncertain. This perception is being reinforced by criticism from political circles. During the current state visit, it has been reported that Donald Trump privately characterized Harry as someone struggling to define his role, an opinion that appears to resonate among parts of Washington's elite. The contrast with James Alexander's trajectory is striking. While Harry continues to pursue paid appearances, James is being positioned within long-term institutional roles. Recently, he was involved in discussions with Commonwealth representatives on youth-focused digital initiatives, engagements centered on responsibility rather than compensation. Behind the scenes, financial strain is reportedly becoming a serious concern for the Sussex household. Without direct royal support, they are said to be covering substantial annual security costs, estimated around $5 million, alongside the upkeep of their multi-million-dollar estate. With major media agreements, including those with Netflix and Spotify reportedly slowing or underperforming, maintaining their current lifestyle is becoming increasingly difficult. Financial analysts suggest that the couple may be drawing heavily on existing resources to sustain their public image. At the same time, Meghan Markle's professional standing has faced scrutiny. Reports linked to William Morris Endeavor indicate that her relationship with the agency ended amid concerns over unmet expectations and limited deliverables. though such claims remain part of broader industry speculation. This perception contrasts sharply with the structured development of James Alexander. Under the guidance of his mother, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, he is reportedly being trained with a focus on discipline and long-term service. Sources suggest that he is being taught to treat royal status as a responsibility, not a commercial product. As of late April 2026, the narrative surrounding the Sussex brand has shifted significantly. Companies that once showed interest are now said to be stepping back, viewing the couple as misaligned with the traditional values associated with the monarchy. With financial and reputational pressures intensifying, speculation continues about what their next move might be. Some rumors hint at increasingly unconventional strategies to maintain relevance, raising broader questions about how far public figures might go when both influence and stability begin to fade. As we arrive at this pivotal moment on April 29, 2026, the direction of the British monarchy appears to be shifting in real time. What began as a period of image management has now moved into something deeper, structural, long-term change. Looking at developments surrounding the current state visit and reported internal dynamics at Windsor, 3 possible outcomes are being discussed regarding the future of the Sussex brand. The first, and perhaps most concerning, scenario involves a last attempt to generate revenue under mounting pressure. Analysts point to signs of strain as major deals lose momentum. There is speculation that the couple could turn to more personal content to regain attention and sponsorship interest. However, such a move would likely come at the cost of credibility, raising ethical concerns, and potentially reshaping public perception in a way that's difficult to reverse. The second possibility is a strategic withdrawal. In this version, Prince Harry acknowledges the firm boundary established by the monarchy and steps back from the public conflict. With diminishing support in Hollywood, he could choose to distance himself from the Sussex brand altogether. This might involve a quiet return to the United Kingdom, not as an active royal, but in a more private capacity, possibly residing in a secure estate with limited public engagement and financial oversight connected to the royal household. The third, and widely seen as the most likely outcome, centers on the continued rise of James Alexander. The heirs appears to have invested considerable effort in preparing the Earl of Wessex for a more prominent role, and that strategy is gaining traction. One possible next step could be his elevation to a senior dukedom, potentially tied to a historic title, formally establishing him as the new primary asperi within the royal structure. Such a move would further shift public attention away from Harry, replacing past controversies with a focus on continuity and service. As one advisor reportedly described it, this would mark the final edit, a stage where the institution simply moves forward without referencing previous disruptions. The reason this scenario carries the most weight is its alignment with public sentiment. James represents stability and a forward-looking approach, qualities that appear increasingly valued. Rather than engaging in conflict, the monarchy seems to be taking a different path, evolving beyond it. If you want to keep following how this royal transition develops, consider subscribing and turning on notifications for updates. We're continuing to track key moments from the Washington state visit and beyond. Share your perspective as well. Do you think this marks a definitive turning point? As the king prepares to conclude his visit to Washington, new reports suggest further developments behind the scenes. There are indications of a possible financial restructuring tied to royal assets, one that could significantly impact Harry's position, depending on future decisions. At the same time, James Alexander has reportedly been seen meeting with the king's legal advisors regarding long-term estate and legacy planning, an area once closely associated with Harry's role. This raises new questions about how responsibilities and expectations within the royal framework are being reassigned. With additional disclosures potentially on the horizon, including financial details that may soon become public, the situation continues to evolve. What was once handled quietly is now entering a more transparent phase. The next chapter is unfolding, and it may bring even more clarity to where each figure stands in the future of the monarchy.